worryingly, the age profile of those involved is becoming increasingly younger. And today's shocking report into St Patrick's Centre for Young Offenders has the potential to make that situation even worse. Barry O'Kelly now reports.
Gangland violence has once again reared its head, with 13 murders so far this year. And perhaps the most worrying aspect of the bloodshed is the emergence once more of the Crumlin-Drimnagh feud. This is the latest Garda report on the feud and the gangs behind it. It catalogues a decade of shootings, stabbings and pipe bombings, which has left 15 people dead and a community under siege. The report obtained by Primetime reveals the size and scale of the gang's operations and identifies more than 100 people who've been associated with the two sides. The Garda report notes how those at the centre of the feud openly revel in the bloodshed. One entry here notes how in the wake of the murder of Anthony Cannon, a group from a rival faction are seen celebrating in the street.
The victim was 26 years old and from the south inner city. He was a well-known gangland figure and was aligned to one of the two feuding Crumlin-Drimnagh gangs.
Further on in the report, one gang member told Gardaí 2 years ago there will be a long list of victims to follow and that the next one up will be Gerard Eglinton.
Gerard Eglinton was downstairs with the children, a toddler and
3 weeks ago, Eglinton became the latest man to die, gunned down at a house in Portlaoise in front of an 11-year-old girl.
It's shown the new ruthless streak that's out there. The people are quite prepared to murder people in front of young children. And it's a new low in criminality.
The Garda file on the feud profiles a series of tit-for-tat killings and numerous shootings, stabbings and assaults. A recurring theme in the stories of those who survive attacks is an unwillingness to make a complaint or a failing memory of what happened.
Good people are afraid to stand up and be counted, and it's very difficult for them to stand up and be counted, because if they do, the next thing is there's an attack on their house. Intimidation is the name of the game.
The Garda file notes how one man is brutally stabbed and how in another incident a car is driven through the front of a house. And further on, a man is left paralysed. And in each case, the victims are unable to identify the alleged perpetrators.
Families are living in terror. When a neighbour is intimidated, you feel intimidated as well. So if the house next door to you is being shot up, you're actually feeling intimidated also. So the community feels intimidated.
We have an awful lot of people in the community who fear that if they come out, they don't know what's going to happen, whether there's going to be another petrol bomb, whether there's going to be a pipe bomb, whether somebody is going to be shot. Like, the vast majority of the people in this community are law-abiding citizens. They want to go about their daily lives.
Girls have had successes here in Crumlin in fighting local criminals and gangs that are involved in serious crime. But it's not just a Garda problem. This is a multi-agency problem. It's not just like, a simple matter of law and order.
The Garda file identifies this man, Freddie Thompson, as a figure associated with one side of the feud. Thompson is now on bail in Spain and as such no longer maintains a presence in Dublin. However, some of his Irish associates have now returned from Spain, unable to afford the luxury lifestyles they once enjoyed from the trade in drugs, particularly cocaine.
It's frightening. The money and drugs, they're vying for territory out there, one gang against the other. And it's all over money.
The pressure is felt most keenly by people at the bottom of the ladder, people living in local estates who are getting into serious trouble over debts of a couple of €1,000.
On a weekly basis, people are being intimidated to pay back their adult children's drug debts, and they're being given 48 hours to do that.
One of the big differences now, say in the 80s, has been that the drug debt was with the individual that was the drug user. So the worst that may happen to them was that they got a few slaps. Their family's tyres might have been slashed. If they unfortunately died, that debt was seen to die with them. Nowadays, the debt just becomes the family debt.
There seems to be no shortage of newcomers to the gangs who are also responsible for a wave of intimidation, which is more to do with money than the feud.
Every time someone is shot, there's someone there to take his place.
As the Garda intelligence file shows, the lineup of the gangs has also changed. Gone are all these men, all victims of the feud. But they've since been replaced by a new, younger generation who've come up through the ranks of the gangs since their early teens.
They have sophisticated weapons. And a young fella today, he has no problem in 15, 16 getting a weapon.
The kids get involved in the gangs in this area, you're not going to get out. You're not going to be allowed to leave the gang because you will have too much information. As you get older, you will get more information. You're not allowed to leave the gangs.
The latest murder has led to fears of a new cycle of killings from a feud which is now running for almost 15 years and has left a community in dread of yet more violence.
Barry O'Kelly there. I'm joined here by John Mooney, security correspondent with the Sunday Times, and from Cork we're joined by Dr. Niamh Horgan, who's a lecturer in sociology there at UCC. First of all, John, the age profile. A lot of these kids, they're very young, aren't they, who are involved in this?
Well, the people involved in this type of feuding range in age for sometimes 16 years of age, right at people into their late 20s. They live what could be described as best as dysfunctional lives. They're regularly using drugs, large amounts of alcohol being consumed. And I think the one common denominator with them all is that they have a lack of empathy for other people and obviously life. Some of this activity, this violent activity, it really is something that it can be quite spontaneous, and that people in some cases are being killed because of perception that they've done something on them. They don't necessarily have to have done something on them. And it can sometimes, it's also manifestation where it's someone trying to maintain their own reputation within the community. So you get someone maybe who takes offence at another individual, something that they perceive to have done on them, and will decide to kill them or attack their family for that slight on their character. So there's a lot of different motivations that lead to this type of killing, and indeed this type of killing just isn't prevalent in Crumlin and Drimnagh. It actually happens in lots of different parts of the city. I think possibly there's a lot of focus on what's happening there because people who have no connection with this type of activity have been injured in the recent past. But again, this is prevalent throughout many of our cities.
And Niamh Horgan, I mean, it's an area you're just so, versed in, you know it so well. I'm still shocked by the age profile of a lot of the young people involved in this.
Well, in fairness, I think a lot of the recent research on the phenomenon and everything we know would suggest that that age profile is steadily decreasing. One of the issues that emerged in my own research on juvenile justice issues was that since the age of criminal responsibility was changed in 2001 to 12, that actually many criminal gangs saw children under 12 as being more useful, essentially because they couldn't be prosecuted by the Gardaí. And in some cases, that has created a scenario where really very young children, I think, are being drawn into criminal activity. So by the time they're getting to their teens, so 14, 15, 16, you're really looking at young people who have a quite considerable experience in terms of gangland crime.
And I know you've looked at other comparisons, or even in Scotland, for instance. How do you go about trying to stop this, to stop young people being sucked into this gangland murder?
Well, I mean, I think there's a range of issues in terms of, and I think your report highlighted there that it's not just a criminal justice issue or a law and order issue. Certainly one of the Irish Penal Reform Trust last year had a report that very much highlighted the role of early intervention, getting in there early, and by early we mean from the age of 0 to 5, basically. One of the things, I suppose, that I think could come out of knowing so much about the Crumlin Drimnagh feud is, we know the communities where this is going on, we know some of the families that are deeply troubled here. So it's not a secret. It's there needs to be intervention at that level. And I suppose, in addition, I think that we need to recognise the criminal justice challenges that are emerging with younger children. One of the things that we've seen, say for instance, Garda diversion in Ireland is largely focused at those over the age of 12. But really, if you have quite a considerable degree of experience by the time you hit the age of 12, then maybe Garda diversion is not the most suitable option for you, or maybe we need to look at those kind of interventions early on. So I think there needs to be a range of approaches adopted to this issue.
OK, and I'm going to go back to you to talk about St Patrick's Centre in a moment. And John, obviously, one of the things I was noticing today as well, the amount of manpower, the amount of guards